So the first time I was invited to high stakes poker, I got kicked off.
How do you spell net?
P-H-I-L.
This next time, I wish I had.
This is high stakes poker. And here's our player replacing Phil Ivey. It's Phil Galfond.
Many of you enjoyed my video covering my first trip to high stakes poker. At that point, they were taking a chance on me. I was relatively unknown, I was young. Now a couple of years had passed, I had won my first bracelet, I was a little bit more established, and I finally got my second chance.
Elky called with a pair of eights, and now Phil Galfond, who maybe thinks he played a little too tight in his first appearance on high stakes poker, has raised it to 11-2 with Queen 7 of diamonds.
I don't play Tom style.
No, let's get that.
No one plays Tom style.
I play my style.
That's true.
Yeah.
This first hand starts with me getting a little bit out of line. Ellie straddles to 1600, Mike Matusow min raises 3200 in early position, Elky calls, and I decide to pop it up with Queen 7 of diamonds to 11K. Elezra then makes the cold call from the big blind with ace 10 offsuit before Mike Matusow folds his queen jack suited and Elky calls with his eights. If I were grading the four of us pre-flop, Elky is the only one who I think played this correctly.
I'm surprised Mike didn't call with Jack, Queen of Hearts. Probable four-way action. Could have been a big pot.
I don't think I'm alone in saying that I would probably call with your hand.
Well, it's going to be a big pot for somebody. Ellie's flopped top two pair, aces and tens. Phil Galfond's got the flush draw.
How much you start again with?
250. That's a lot, right?
50 more.
50 more?
Not as much as it looks like. He looks more.
72 total.
Seems to me that Phil Galfond came to play this season on high stakes poker.
We head to the flop of ace 10 deuce with two diamonds. I flop a flush draw. Elezra flops top two pair. I decide to c-bet 22,000, a little over half pot. A bit big, but not entirely unreasonable. And Elezra, with his top two, decides to check raise right away rather than slow play to 72,000. Elky gets out of the way wisely with his eights, and I have to decide if I want to continue and how I want to continue. I don't think jamming here is going to work often enough. I also am sometimes in a world of hurt against ace X of diamonds, so I really don't want to get all in on the flop. It's kind of uncomfortable calling, leaving a pot-sized bet left on the turn, but it feels like a little bit too much equity to fold, so I decide to put in the call.
But he just calls. If a diamond doesn't come on the turn, there's nowhere for Phil Galfond to go. I don't think he's going to lead out and bet at it. Let's see. No diamond.
I'm all in.
And there's the all-in.
There's not much I can do here. As you can see, I have 18% equity, which is basically what I'm always going to have. I'm getting 2-to-1 odds. Calling would be losing money, so I make the fold.
You're watching high stakes poker. Now Phil Galfond's got the big pair.
So now I have a real hand. Elezra opens to 5,600 after a straddle. Benyamine calls, and I have pocket queens. I raise it up to 21,000.
Don't worry.
He's going to put in a raise.
I'm going to be there. I guarantee it.
Don't see Ellie throwing away his nines.
How much you start the hand with? About 250? 3?
Between 250 and 3.
I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but I never count my chips for anybody. So,
No, I asked about
I
it.
know,
didn't
but I'm
ask
just
her.
saying, I don't.
Thank you.
David might be against an ace-king, ace-queen, but he's going to call.
Both players call, and I'm feeling pretty excited about this with my image and this big hand when the dealer spreads the ace-jack-6 rainbow flop.
And there it is.
Unfortunately, this board is really bad for queens against my opponent's ranges, and as you can see here, against one of their specific hands. I decided to c-bet here about half pot, which I think is almost certainly a mistake. I think that if I'm going to continuation bet here, it should be smaller by quite a bit, and I think checking is totally reasonable. This is well in the pre-solver era. We don't really know what the perfect bet sizes are and whether or not you should bet hands like this, so I don't fault myself too much.
David raises it to 92-2, $60,000 raise. Phil's got David convinced that he's got ace-king, maybe ace-queen, and David wants to get into a fight. He likes his odds. Only problem is Phil doesn't have either one of those hands.
Benyamine, with his top two pair, decides to raise, and while I am suspicious and I don't like folding, I do manage to make the correct fold.
Phil says adios to his two ladies.
David Benyamine, ladies and gentlemen.
Although it hasn't been working yet, I do keep my foot on the gas. In this next hand against Lex, I defend the big blind with queen 10 offsuit. On an all spade flop with no spades in my hand, I decided to check raise. To be perfectly honest with you, I have no idea why I decided to do this. It's completely non-standard. I don't know if I thought that I had some kind of read, but at this point I wasn't very big into live tells, so I don't know what that read would have been. I think I was just being aggressive for the sake of being aggressive. Fortunately, Lex doesn't have anything, and I did take down the pot.
Phil Galfond with a very good read. Check raises to 39,000 and takes the pot.
I keep up the aggression in this next hand against Daniel Negreanu. I start with 10 deuce offsuit, terrible hand. However, Doyle Brunson, the godfather, is at the table and I'd like to impress him, so I raise it up. Let's see what happens.
But as tribute to Doyle, Phil Galfond's going to raise to 8,000 with 10 deuce offsuit.
Just loser. You don't want to win it on a coin flip.
What is this?
And neither is Ellie. Daniel's got queens. Ellie has jacks. And Phil Galfond's going to continue his story. Daniel's calling.
I get called in 2 spots and flop absolutely nothing. I decide to fire a half pot c-bet of about 14,000 and Negreanu calls. Now Eli Elezra with second pair gets out of the way wisely as he's beaten by Negreanu's top pair, and we head to the turn.
That's good poker. Play different at the end than the beginning. There you go.
Hey, you just said I need to, how do you call it? Book it?
No, I don't think I ever have uttered those words to anyone in my life, actually.
30,000 should do it, but it doesn't look like that's what he has on his mind. Looks like Phil checked on the turn there to make this play. His timing is bad. Not only does Daniel have top pair, that 8 is giving him a flush and a straight draw.
The 8 of clubs rolls off on the turn. I pick up a gut shot, so for the first time I have a little bit of a hand. As we can see here, Daniel picks up a huge hand. Gut shot, plus flush draw, plus top pair. I decide to check. I think this board is really draw heavy and it's kind of dangerous to just blast every gut shot, so I like this check. Negreanu bets 30K, and for some inexplicable reason, I decide to raise to 94,000. Now, I do think it's a spot where Negreanu might be betting a hand like King-Queen to just protect his hand and then showdown, maybe even a hand like King-Jack or Ace-Jack. And when I do check raise, they're in a really ugly spot and they need to lay their hand down. That said, there are so many draws that can continue either by raising or calling, and so many made hands that are really strong. Remember, Negreanu called with another player left to act behind him, that I think this play is just really ill-advised, and it's just aggression for the sake of aggression.
I'm all in.
Had he just called and a river bricked off, I probably would have fired, because not having one of those missed flush draws is really good to continue bluffing. Would he have called with top pair? We'll never know. But as it stands, he takes the pot down now on the turn.
I'm all in. I got in trouble. I fold. I was trying to impress Doyle.
I had one of those too.
I wasn't always blasting off with nothing. Sometimes I actually made some strong hands, but unfortunately when I did, nobody had much of anything.
Please, someone, no, no,
It's because
hell no, and no thank you.
And then there were the times that I had made hands, but I found myself in tricky spots. In this next one, I am up against 4 players as we head to a flop of 10-10-7. I flop 2 pair with a 9 kicker. It gets checked around to the turn of an offsuit 6, and Elky bets out 11K. Now I have a pair and a gut shot. Even though there are 2 players left to act behind me, I decide to call. And Daniel Negreanu, who flopped the nuts, raises to 41,000.
Daniel, with the absolute nuts, slams his chips down. He's trying for a sell, but that is a tell.
I do it in small one, don't do it.
Well, I thought y'all all checked it a while ago.
They check the flop.
Daniel raised 30,000, hoping those players might interpret strength as weakness, hoping maybe someone was fooled by him slamming the chips down. Maybe they have a decent hand and he'll get action. But Elky doesn't even think about going for it.
41,000.
There are a lot of draws that Daniel can have here, so I do decide to make this call, and we head to the river with over $100,000 in the pot.
Daniel bets 80,200 in the continued theory of strength.
The river's an offsuit king, which doesn't change anything. If he was bluffing the turn, he's probably still not got a hand. By the time he's put in this much money, he can't really value bet a king anymore anyway. I check, and Daniel does bet 80,000, about a 3/4 pot bet. I replay the action in my mind. Daniel didn't bet the flop, which I think reduces some of his combos of 10x. He raises the turn in a spot where, yes, he's representing a strong hand, but also there are flush draws that he could have, including combo flush draws. Also on this board, when there are 1-card gut shots available, by which I mean any 8 in your hand or any 9 in your hand gives you a gut shot, there are a lot of straight draws available. There's so many combos of straight draws. So even if Daniel only raises them a small fraction of the time, they're gonna start to pile up and outnumber his made hands. I decide to make the call. I get the bad news. All in all, I don't mind this play for me, but it just didn't work out.
Oh my God, Clay Aiken went for it.
My favorite hand.
Nice hand.
Sorry I didn't bet on the flop.
I don't mind.
Then you could have doubled.
It did all right.
In this next hand, I don't start with much, but I end up with a nice hand and an interesting decision. So it starts with me 3-betting a hand that has no business 3-betting, king 5 offsuit. Elezra wakes up with pocket kings and makes it 40K. Now with king 5 offsuit, once you've 3-bet and you face a big 4-bet, you have a very, very standard fold. However, past Phil felt that he could outplay these guys post-flop, and he decided to put in this call, lighting a little bit of money on fire. We head to the king 9-9 flop, pretty good flop for me, and Elezra bets small, only 33,000. He's got the full house, so he doesn't want to scare me away. I'm thinking he has a hand like ace queen, ace jack, maybe some kind of random bluff with ace 4. He's got some ace king, some king queen, maybe some queen queen, jack jack, 10-10 that are firing that small bet to just make the hand easier to play.
Another 9, it's gonna make it worse for Phil. Check, check. Galfond wouldn't bite.
So I make the easy call, and we head to a 9 turn. I make a full house, and I'm in a world of trouble. Elky checks to me, and I decide to check back. Here I'm thinking, well, if he's got a hand like queens or jacks, I'll get my money on the river. It seems hard for me to have a lot of air that called twice. Also, if he was bluffing on the flop and gave up on the turn, I want to give him a chance to bluff the river, thinking that I have a hand like pocket 5s, or maybe ace queen, or maybe a gut shot. So I decided to check back, kind of set the trap.
That river queen doesn't help Ellie's cause.
Now the queen river is bad for me because if Elezra had a hand like queen queen, he's now improved to a full house that beats mine. Of course, I still lose to king king, I still lose to ace ace. So that kind of strong pre-flop range that he was representing, I am behind. However, he could have ace king, king queen, some other king X bluff that I chop with, or he could have some kind of hand that might need to bluff here. He decides to bet 110,000, and here I have a tough decision because it's entirely possible that he's bluffing. It's entirely possible that he's value betting the same hand as mine and we're chopping. I really feel like I'm up against a hand like queen queen or ace ace.
Pocket queens?
What's it?
I asked if you had pocket queens, but I wasn't really asking you. I was just talking to myself. I have a full house.
Wow.
It's hard to make full houses in that game.
For a second, I was thinking you made a flush,
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Check 10 of spades wouldn't be too bad.
and that was a sick bit too.
Like the whole.
Phil makes the right decision.
I do manage to make the fold, and looking back at my past self, I'm pretty proud. Not so proud of the 40K pre-flop with king 5 offsuit against kings. This was another big pot that did not go my way, and in the end, on this second try at high stakes poker, I was a little more entertaining, but I walked away losing over 400,000. Would I have changed anything? Yeah, there were some plays that I didn't like, but the way that I approached the session, playing aggressively, trusting my reads, I'm happy with the showing that I came out with. It didn't go my way, but by playing some more entertaining poker, and probably because I donked off 400,000 or so, I did manage to get an invite to the next season of High Stakes Poker once again, which we'll cover in a future video. Until then, take care.